Episode 221, The Art of Making Friends, with Daelene Byam.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
Making friends may seem simple, but many of us struggle with it, especially during life transitions. Whether you're a teenager, a young adult, or navigating empty nesting, creating and maintaining deep friendships takes intentional effort. In this episode, Coach Daelene shares practical strategies for forming genuine connections, overcoming social discomfort, and building a strong community. Learn how small shifts in your approach, such as saying hello, inviting others, and being open to new experiences, can transform your social life and deepen your relationships. Please enjoy.
Hey friends, welcome to the podcast today. Thank you for joining us. I'm joined today by the wonderful Coach Daelene Byam. Hello, Daelene.
Hello, Heather.
How you
So good
doing?
to be here. So good.
Good. It's so good to have you. Dalene's been on with me before. I always love having her. You can hear in my voice that I have a cold, so I'm gonna let Daelene do a lot of the talking today, so no one has to listen to my lovely
Perfect.
voice. But Daelene, before we get started, for people who have not listened to a conversation between you and I before, can you give people a little bit of information about you so they can know who you are?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Daelene Byam. I actually work with teenagers. I my niche is anxious teens, but it ends up I'm coaching on everything and anything with teenagers. And actually my favorite is young adults. I love working with young adults because I just feel like they get it, right? They just really take the stuff that we're working on. I'm finding I'm more of a mentor than a coach sometimes too, right? Like here's some things we can try. And anyways, I love all that kind of stuff. So that's what I do. I live actually pretty well straight north from you. Hey, Heather, don't you think? I
Yeah,
feel like
I
we're
think
pretty
so.
well in Alberta, Canada. We live out on a little acreage. We have a little bit of land and we're recent empty nesters. And we have four boys. Our oldest is actually, he served a mission and everything, but he's come out gay after he came on his mission. And he lives with his partner 2 hours north of us. Our two middle boys live 2 hours south of us, and they're both married and have two wonderful grandbabies for us. And then our youngest is on a mission in, well, Oklahoma. Heather and I were just talking about this. It's technically Oklahoma City mission. He's actually only ever served in Kansas, but that's where he is. And so yeah.
Oh,
And of course, I live with my husband. We've been married 30 years in May. Is that crazy?
that is
But
crazy. I'm coming up on 29 and it's like, how did this happen, right?
30 is so
Yeah,
long.
it
Like
is so
it's
long.
so long, but it's great. It's good. It's
I
good.
love it. Okay, grandbabies. Do you have is boy girl? Like, what do you have as far
Yeah.
as grandkids?
We had a girl first, so that was amazing. So a girl is 11 months and then a boy 3 months old. So
Oh,
they're still
how
pretty little, but
fun. Yeah, but so
we,
fun.
oh, joy of my life right now, of
Yeah,
course.
I love it so much. Well, Daelene, we get to have a conversation. I love the topic that we're talking about. I'm going to let you introduce that topic, but I think it's so pertinent. And some people might be like, "Oh, that seems pretty simplistic," but let's be honest. When we talk about it, when you hear what we're talking about, I think it is something that even as adults, we a lot of people struggle with. So, anyway, what are we talking
Totally.
about today?
Totally. Okay, I came up with the best topic like name for it. It's the art of making friends because I do think it is an artwork to doing it. And the reason this has been on my mind is for a couple of reasons. It comes up with my clients all the time. But I just recently got released as a Release Society president, and this was something that came up with I almost all the women when I was doing ministering interviews. Like everybody feels like they're struggling with
Mhm.
making, keeping, establishing, creating friendships. And I think we all kind of go through it in different seasons in our lives. I'll kind of talk about that a little later too, but not so it happens with everybody, I feel like, not
Mhm.
just like at some point in our life we all struggle with it, right?
Yeah.
And so and this has just been for me this year, I don't know about you, I pick a word that I kind of focus on for the year.
Mhm.
And this year I kind of have three, and it's community, gather, and connect. And so with those three things, I'm trying to, because I feel in a pretty good place with my friend groups right now, but I know there's so many people that don't. And
Mhm.
so I've just kind of decided that I need to do better at making it better for other people too. So it's just, I
Yeah.
don't know, it's just so passionate about friends right now.
Well, I mean, you're entering that stage of life. I am too, where we have more time all of a sudden because we don't have our kids at home that kind of dictate what our schedule is like. Also, I think when our kids are at home, like we kind of have a social life in some way because we're just communicating with their parents or people at different, events that they're participating in. We already have people to kind of associate with. And then when our kids start to leave, it's I don't know, that kind of goes away a little bit if you haven't really
Yeah.
solidified those relationships. So it's just a different phase of life. But I think it feels very similar to um, even just a teenager, right? Where they're just trying to make friends. And in fact, this is kind of as a side note, I was with my mother-in-law who's newly living in an assisted living home, and I was taking her into the lunchroom the other day. And I thought, oh my gosh, I like had this fear, like PTSD come over me of like walking into the junior high lunchroom of like, where am I going to sit
Right.
with what people am I going to sit with? And I thought these are like 70 and 80-year-old people and they probably are fine, but it kind of gave me a little bit of a
Yeah.
panic attack.
But do you know what? And that's the thing. I think we think that they're probably fine, but
Yeah.
they probably aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Because I don't think anybody is when we have these transitions. And I was actually just talking to my mother-in-law about this, is every time we have a transition in our life, we kind of change with how we have friends. Exactly what you said, right? My friends used to be at all the basketball games and with my kids sitting in the stands with their friends' parents, right? And those were your friends. But just recently when I got released from being release society president, which didn't happen when I thought it was going to because we got bumped out of our ward and we became empty nesters all at the same time. And it just hit me hard. And I don't know why. Well, I know why, because that was hard. But
Hmm.
but I'm saying I don't know why because I have lots of good friends, but all of a sudden I was like, I have to be intentional here again about creating community for myself because all of a sudden I don't have to go do ministering interviews and I don't go have to go help that sister in need and I don't have a purpose every day that I had before. Plus, I don't have my kid here either, right? Like that
Hmm.
purpose was gone too. So both those things gone at once. I was like kind of rocked and I was like, that was so hard and it took me a while. And I feel like that happened in like, well, my son left on his mission the end of August. I got released in, I can't remember, October, November, and it's just taken me now till I kind of feel like I've got my feet under me again and that's just in that aspect, right? Like I feel like my friend part was good, but my community part was a little bit rocked,
Yeah.
right? That part kind of
How
changed.
would you define that difference between friends and community?
Well, for me, sometimes it's the same, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
it is the same, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's not. And so for me, mine's different because my friends all live half an hour away from me because they're in a former ward, right? And
Okay.
so they're in a former ward of mine that when we moved out into the country, I like left my my friends. And so I think that's why mine are separated a little bit
Hmm.
because my day to day, I don't see my friends, when
Hmm.
I go to a basketball game or when I go to church. I don't see my friends there, right?
Right.
And especially now because we're in a different ward again, because we got bumped. I keep saying
Right.
we got bumped. It felt bumped because there was only two families that got moved out. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I really feel bumped from it.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I asked that question because I think it's important. Sometimes we just think that community, the people in the community are our friends, and really it's very different, right? Like having a friendship with somebody is different than going to church with somebody. Having a friendship with somebody is different than, finding them at a basketball game where your kids are. Like it's a community is where we might find those people, but we kind of create those friendships from spending time in
Yeah.
different communities.
Yeah, and I think that's where you do find your friends is in the communities, right?
Hmm.
Like maybe you have a community where you take lessons somewhere or your kids take lessons somewhere or at the grocery store or whatever, right? Maybe that's where you find them, but then you really bring them in and
Yeah.
become friends that way,
Yeah.
right?
For sure, for sure. Okay, so tell us, like, let's just give us some tips. Give us the
Okay.
information. What's the art
Yes.
of making
Okay.
friends?
Okay. So it's so interesting because I think we have to start from the very beginning with a lot of it. And it's interesting that I have to teach this to my clients too, but I think a lot of women need to know this too, because I see a lot of women kind of like head down, walking by themselves, or women that even on Sunday, I noticed a woman that sat in the back of Relief Society and she sat and went by herself, right?
Mhm.
So often we just kind of get comfortable in our loneliness. And the way to do that is just so super simple, but we don't really think about it. And that's why I think we need to get so comfortable being uncomfortable in it at first so that we are comfortable doing this. And these are the four things that I teach my clients. And sometimes it takes them a long time to do it. And sometimes it's very fast, just depends on the person. But it's just a simple, basic things that we have to do is look someone in the eye, look people in the eye, look everybody in the eye. I don't care who they are, look them in the eye, give them a smile, say hello, and then in some instances, like just introduce yourself. Hello, my name's Daelene, right? And do that. Like just get so comfortable with it. One summer, I decided I was going to do this, like look people in the eyes, say smile, and say hello to everybody I saw. Because in the summer, we go to a national park where we kind of stay for the summer so that our kids are, I don't, this is what we used to do. I don't know if we're doing it this year, but so that our kids can work. And I go walking with my sister-in-laws every single night we walk. And I got in the habit of smiling, looking people in the eye, and saying hello to every person we walked by, every person. And one night we went past and there was just this biker gang kind of all clumped together. And I went hello to them as we went by. And my sister-in-law just looked at me and was like, what the heck was that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just so much in the habit of it. What does it matter? I'm just saying hello to everybody. And the reason this one is good is because it makes other people feel good. But when someone like lights up and says hello back to you, it feels good for us too. And it builds up our confidence in it too. And then we want to do that more. But it's just so interesting that we have to be reminded to do that kind of stuff,
Yes, it's
right?
so true. It seems like that would be very elementary, but no, like I tend to be one of those people that I'm like, I just won't look that way and I'll just keep walking.
Right? But
Yeah.
it feels good to do it when you start to do it. And once you get in the habit, like I'm such in the habit of it now that I just do it everywhere and anywhere now. It just doesn't even matter. And I'm just saying hello to everybody. And sometimes it annoys the people I'm with or whatever, because I'm like saying hi to everybody. But it makes such a difference. I was talking to my friend and her daughter decided to do this a couple of years ago. And for some reason, she just chose all the boys in her grade. She was going to say hello to all the boys in her grade every time she passed them in the hallway and smile at them and stuff like that. And she said it really just created such friendships for her, that friendships that 2 years later she still has because she just
Mhm.
decided she was going to say hello to all the boys every time she passed them. And I just thought, oh, so brave, one, so brave and so good. But it created friendships for her to do that. And that's what it really does. It opens you up and just puts you this sign on you that is like, I'm open for friendships with anybody.
Yeah,
And
so
so
good.
yeah. So I love that part of it too. So the next thing that I thought of is and I don't know if you follow Kristen Andrus, I think her name is on Instagram. She her husband owns Traeger grills and she just really is the art of gathering. That's like her big thing. I think she even has like a little thing that she started called Gather or something like that. But she always it's a few years ago she was talking about she doesn't wait for other people to invite her over and in reality she says she hardly ever gets invited to things. But she's always posting on social media all these big gatherings she does all these big events that she's involved with and doing. And she says, I'm the one doing the inviting 90% of the time. And I
Isn't
thought
that
that's so
so?
interesting,
It is interesting because in the back of our minds, I think we always feel like I'm not getting invited. Everybody's doing all the things, and that's just not the case. Like for the most part, people aren't inviting people. You're not getting left out. It's just not happening. We've got to be the ones.
right? Yeah. Brooke Romney did a thing. She did like a little survey kind of thing on her Instagram, asking people if they felt like they're included in things or if they feel included. 84% people thought they weren't included in things. 84%. So she said, how can we wait for 16% of the population to be
Yeah,
the people including and gathering and inviting? We can't wait for that.
yeah.
16%.
16% including the other 84%. Like that's very lopsided, right? Like no, we
Mhm.
cannot.
No, no, we can't. So this is, I've kind of decided that that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the person to invite and to do these things. And so like even on Thursday I decided I'm in this new ward. I don't know a ton of people in it, but I just posted on the Facebook page I'm having a Galentine's get together. And I just invited everybody in the ward, all the sisters in the ward. Come, I'm doing a brunch. I'm providing everything. You just have to show up. I'm going to feed you and then we're going to play some games. But just come. And I just decided I just needed to put myself out there because I don't know a ton of the people. And in the end, I think it was mostly the people that I do kind of know already that said yes, which is fine because then I'm just going to solidify some more friendships there. But some older sisters are coming too, which I think is so great because I want to get to know them too, right? And
Mhm.
I don't know. That's just me putting myself out there. I don't know who's coming or who's going to show up, but you can't wait for other people to do it
Yeah.
and expect that it's going to happen because it's not going to happen.
So true. Ooh, well, I wish I lived closer or I would invite myself to your Galentine's party.
You can make it. You can make it. It's not till Thursday.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
But yeah, I just think we just have to be like, don't wait. Don't expect that other people are going to ask us, and don't be offended when we don't get asked because
Hmm.
it's 16%. I think it's
Yeah.
such a good stat to remember
Mhm.
and think about. So, okay, the other thing that I've started doing is not saying no to anything that I'm getting invited to. If somebody invites me to a book club, if someone invites me to a favorite things thing, because I don't know how many times, like, I just got invited to a book club and they're doing Pride and Prejudice. And I'm like, do I really need to go to a book club for Pride and Prejudice? I've read the book like 5 billion times.
Mhm.
Do I really need to go? But that's not the point of it, right? The point is to go out and to communicate with other people and to create some more friends, right? And then I got invited to a couple of favorite things at Christmas time. And the one, I think I knew three people there. That's it. It was so uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable. It probably wasn't uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable because they were all about 10 years younger than me. They're they weren't really my demographic of people, but I just had decided it doesn't matter. I'm just going, and sometimes us going places is not about us too. It's about what we do for somebody else too. And
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe something I did or talked about was good for somebody else there. I don't know. I haven't seen the anything from that one, but besides that, I was uncomfortable.
Well, and that could
But
just be it, right? Like you just willing to do that and to be uncomfortable. Like maybe that's the only thing that will come out of it. But even that in and of itself is really big.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And so I just decided I just anything that I can work out. And this is what I say to my clients too, is that the answer is yes to everything, unless it goes against your personal standards.
Hmm.
The answer is yes to everything. If somebody puts themselves out there to invite you to something, yeah, you go. So I think quite often people complain or are sad that they don't have friends, but they're the ones not going to the ward activities or the Relief Society stuff or the Linger Longers or whatever, right? They're the ones
Hmm.
not going to stuff too. So it's hard to complain when you say, I don't know anybody in the ward, but you're not showing up for things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I like it.
So, so yeah. Okay. The next one I was thinking about, and I have a really funny story about this one too. be prepared to be uncomfortable about things because people are going to say no to you, and that's okay. Or they're going to question what you're doing, and that's okay too. Like it's going to be uncomfortable doing some of it, right? Like you're putting yourself out there, and some people are going to say no to your invites, and that's fine. One girl, I asked her to go for lunch with me just because, anyways, I was just trying to go for lunch with people and get to know people. And I invited this woman for lunch. I think the reason I invited her is because I found out that she was a coach of teenagers too. But I didn't really know her. So I invited her to go for lunch. Partway through the lunch, she goes, "Why did you invite me for lunch?" And I was like, I'm looking for friends. I just didn't even know what to say because I was just like, oh. And then I never heard back from her ever for like a year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was just so uncomfortable, but kind of a funny story now too, right? And it's so
Yeah.
good that like I put myself out there and it didn't really turn out well and it was fine. Anyways, about a year later, I found out that she was going through a divorce shortly just after that. So of course, she was kind of probably wrapped up in her own stuff, and that's why nothing was ever thought of or spoken of or anything about it again. But it was just pretty funny, just kind of awkward when she said, "Why did you invite me?"
And to be honest, like if she was having a hard time in her personal life, it was probably a great thing for her to do, right? Like in her mind, it was, anyway, I don't know. I just think we have to remember that there is two people involved in a situation like that. And
Uh-huh.
she might have just been surprised in her own self, being like, I wonder why Daelene, this amazing person, would invite me to come to lunch, right? So I love that. I think it's hysterical.
I think it's funny, but yeah, I think we just have to be prepared and know that some people are going to say no, and some it's not going to be for everybody, and you're not going to be for everybody too, right? And
Right,
it's totally
right.
fine.
And it
It's
doesn't mean
fine.
anything about us. Like
Yeah.
it's all to do with them. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that kind of goes into the next one is kind of like accept who you are. Some people are more extroverted and some people are more introverted, and that's fine. Like if you're a person that's way better with one-on-one stuff, then that is just perfect. Like I go walking with a couple of different ladies uh, every week, and we walk hard for an hour. We go walk a track because it's too cold and icy here. We'll go walk a track and we'll walk hard for an hour, and then we'll walk and just keep talking for another hour. So it's like a 2 hour thing. But so some people are just more into that one-on-one interaction, right? And I know that's probably these friends, right? That's what they need is just that one-on-one interaction. They're not
Hmm.
interested in the big brunch or the big favorite things thing or whatever, right? They're not interested in that kind of stuff. They just want to interact with you one on one, but kind of pay attention and know that's what you're interested in and don't push yourself into something that you're not too, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah. Okay. So
that's
tell me how
okay.
that would fit in with the don't say no to anything. If you
Oh,
know
yeah.
yourself, like I'm curious what would you say to that then? Like if
I
it's
would say still do it.
uh-huh.
For the first, like, I think still push yourself to do some of that stuff because that may create some of those individualized things that you crave more, right? But I think that's more to be like when you're doing the asking, you're not going to create a big party, right? You're
Right,
going to do more
absolutely.
one-on-one. You're going to go for lunch with someone one-on-one, or you're going to go for a walk with someone one-on-one. Like
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
more,
and if
I
you never
think.
do the things that, that you're uncomfortable with, you you're using it almost as like a point of observation for yourself, observing like where am I comfortable, where am I uncomfortable? Like you have to do the things so that you can learn more about yourself. And so I think that's a great point too, right? You say yes, and even if you're not really too excited about it, you can even just use it for a point of observation in learning more about yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And such a great opportunity to talk to people there,
Hmm.
right? One on one.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I love that. The next one is kind of thinking about is just being patient with yourself and being patient with the process. It takes time. It really does. And also we have transitions. Like I just had that transition, right? Where I was released from my calling and became an empty nester both at the same time. That was a transition, and that kind of changes, and when our kids grow up and we stop having activities, that's a transition, right? When we move, that's a transition. when we get a little bit older, like move into old folks home or whatever, right? That's a transition. Those are all transitions that kind of change our community and our ability to gather and our friendships, and that's okay. And I think we just have to kind of be patient with it. I was so worried when we moved that I would lose that connection with my friends that I had because we moved out of the ward. Our kids that we had connected through, those children had grown out of the houses too, right? So we didn't have that connection either all of a sudden. But it's so interesting because I think we all kind of decided that we needed that at the same time. And we kind of started putting some work into it. And now we're to a place where it's great. And we're getting together with our friends weekly right now when we can. And it's so fun. And we're like all going on trips together. And we're like, hey, we're doing candlelight orchestra thing concert tonight. We got extra tickets. Who wants to go? And like it's just a constant thing. And I feel like we've been out here for 4 years now. Like I've left my friend group 4 years ago from living like right next door to them to this. And I feel like just in the last 6 months, we've really, really have solidified that friendship. And without work, and that's my next point was kind of get into the habit of inviting. Once we're in the habit of inviting, the people around us kind of get in the habit of inviting, and then they start inviting. Once you're with people, they start to see it, right? That you're inviting, and then they start inviting. So we had one of our friends said, hey, everyone come over. We're going to play cards, and then we're going to play games together, and we're all going to get together, and we're going to do this. And then literally the very next month, the next person was like, hey, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to all play cards together, and then we're going to do a group game together and kind of thing. And then it just kind of snowballed, right? And now
Mhm.
now we're kind of in the habit of it, of every month we're getting together, but then we're getting together even more. And so I think you kind of get in that habit of it, but then the people you associate with kind of start to get in the habit of it too,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
started inviting girls to start walking the track, and they started inviting people to walk the track now too. So they're going on other days when they're not with me to walk the track with other people. It just kind of snowballs, right? Once you start doing it, other people start doing it too. I think it's super,
Mhm.
super fun to see that kind of thing.
Yeah, you need a little, I think sometimes motivation from other people or just ideas. Like we don't always think about those things. So just observing what other people are doing. And if you're getting invited by other people, it does kind of pique your creativity in ways that you can do it yourself.
Yeah. And it looks easy when someone else is doing it. In reality, it is kind of easy. You just have to send someone a text and say, "Hey, do you want to go for a walk on Monday? And I'll come pick you up." Just make it so simple, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I always say, "I'll come pick you up."
yeah,
And
that's awesome.
yeah. So so that was the next thing is start small. Like if you're not been social, if you don't have friends, if you've not been going out and doing things already, start super small. Start with the small things, like start with the sisters you minister to, because that's who you maybe should be kind of reaching out to anyways, but start with them. Invite them over for a little like luncheon at your house, or for a little walk, or say, hey, I'm going to a movie, or I'm really been wanting to go see this show or whatever. I have an extra ticket for the community theater. Do you want to go to that? Like just start with really small little things that kind of put yourself out, and realize it's going to be so uncomfortable. If you haven't been doing it, it's going to be so uncomfortable, but it's fine. It's what's uncomfortable too is that you don't have friends, right? That's uncomfortable too. But the uncomfortable of asking and putting yourself out there and starting small is going to create great things.
Hmm. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up ministering because I feel for me, because I have 5 sisters, and that has always tended to be kind of who I've gravitated towards, right? I haven't really been great at putting myself out there and making friendships, but ministering has been really good for me in that aspect because it's kind of like forces me, and that's not the right word, but it kind of is the right word for me. It forces me to it gives me an excuse, I guess, to reach out to other people and to make a friend because I'm a little intimidated in reaching out to people. And so, under the guise of, oh, I'm ministering, they are the person that I minister to, I have made friendships from people in different demographics that I would have never made friendships and dear friendships, right? To the point where I go to the movies with a 65-year-old woman and I drive her to, 4 hours away to a funeral so she doesn't have to go by herself. Those sorts of things I would never have done before. And I've made such tender friendships that for me, ministering has been very good in helping me be a friend because it's given me an excuse, a reason to be a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And that kind of reminds me, I've been in a few different presidencies and we still get together for lunch every once in a while because you've created that bond with those people already. And so often we feel like it's over when you kind of get released from your callings,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You've already created a bond with people. You've already created a community. You've already created connection with them. Why wouldn't you keep that going? And
Yeah,
I've
for
heard of
sure.
sisters that have been doing that for years and years and years. And so I just started that with my old Really Steady presidency. We get together and we go for lunch. And it's so great because I'm hoping we carry it on for years and years and years because you've served hard with these ladies, right? And you've created this friendship. Why wouldn't you want to keep going? And they're not in my ward anymore because I got bumped out, but so I have to be put forth the effort, right? Because I'm not going to see them on Sunday. I might see them in the building because we're in the same building, but I don't see them every Sunday like I used to. So I have to put forth that
Yeah,
effort to make sure I keep that
yeah,
bond together, that connection.
for sure.
So yeah. But anyways, the other thing is that if we start to resent that we don't have friends, if we start to feel frustrated and upset, it kind of come across that way. And then people have a harder time being our friend. But if we have that, like I said, that sign that says open for friendships on us, if we're open to it and willing and putting ourselves out there, people want to be your friend. They want to be a part of it. It's so funny because someone mentioned my brunch in Release Society on Sunday. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know who you were. But as soon as they knew who I was and put a face to my name, they're like, oh, I'd like to come to your brunch too. Like I just had to kind of put it out there. And because I'm like, oh, please come. Like I was so how like upbeat and kind about it. And the woman next to me who brought it up was too. And they're like, all of a sudden they're all wanting to come, but they were all a little worried about it when they just saw my post on Facebook, right? So I think we need
Mm-hmm.
to really present ourselves as open for
Yeah,
friendships too.
for sure.
So yeah, one of the last things I wanted to say though too with it was one, there's no coincidences. Our lesson on Sunday was Elder Buckner's talk on Ye Are My Friends. And I was
Mm.
like, of course it is, right?
Yep.
So if you haven't read that talk recently, it's just so good. But I love this part where he says, Jesus Christ has long called his faithful followers his friends. 14 times in the Doctrine and Covenants, the Savior uses the term friend to define a sacred and cherished relationship. And I thought, oh, I just love that. What a great thing that we are looking for sacred and cherished relationships and to be
Mhm.
able to call people our friend. And
Yeah.
the other thing I thought about when I was thinking about that is how when the Savior was ministering on this earth, he did not wait for everyone to come to him. He was the gatherer. He gathered people to him. He went to the apostles. He called the apostles. He went to the people. He was the gatherer. So if we want friendships like that, like people and to be like our Savior, then we need to be the ones gathering. We need to be the ones choosing to find the people and
Mm.
find our friends so that we too can have that sacred and cherished relationship because I think it's just so important because if that was important to our Savior, think of how important it should be to us. And even my son on his mission, they don't call them investigators anymore. I don't know if you know this. They call them friends now. And
Mm,
I love that so much. And that's mission wide, like that's church wide. They all
yeah,
call them friends. They're their friends. And I'm going to send this talk to him too and let him say, I love that you're investigators. I think he has like 4 or 5 on date right now. It's so amazing. But he's like, they're our friends. And when he says, yeah, our friends came to church today. And I'm like, ah, oh, I love that your friends came to church today with you. It's so great
I
that that's
love
how
it.
they refer to them. I just think it's so amazing
Well,
that,
and ultimately, that's why we're here, right? Relationships are why we are here. Loving other people is why we are here. And sometimes I think it gets really easy. And I mean, I know for me, just to kind of get in my little shell and go about my groove of just doing my thing. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, wait, what? Why am I doing all this? Like, what's the whole purpose? And I'm in the same boat as you, kind of going through some transitions with, I have one kid left at home and we'll be graduating here in a couple of months and kind of in the back of my mind always is what's the purpose now? Like, what's my purpose if I don't have kids in my home and I have to remind myself, oh, it's still relationships. It's relationships with my kids still, but with other people because I have time for other people. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. So thank you for sharing your points with us today because they're super helpful.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I just think it's everybody. Even we see the people like I use Kristen Andrus. Go to her Instagram. She's like a
I
party
will.
animal. And you feel like she has it all, right? Like she is constantly so popular and be invited to everything. But I loved it when she was so vulnerable and said, I never get invited. People rarely invite us over. We are the ones always doing it. And
Mhm.
so I think we just have to really take responsibility for our own friendships and not expect it to just happen. And it's work. It's hard work, right? Like it
Yeah.
takes a long time to create deep friendships with people. And if that's what we're craving, if that's what we're wanting, then we need to go out and find it for ourselves, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Daelene, thank you so much. It's fantastic. Will you share with people before we leave how they can find more of you and make some connection with you themselves?
Yeah. So honestly, my name's really easy to, well, it's not easy to spell, but if you just go Daelene,
Yep.
you'll find me. It's super easy. There's not very many, but yeah, anxiety coach Daelene on Instagram. I think that's what my thing is, but if you get anything close to it, you'll find. I have a website. It's dailenebyam.com. I'm gonna put a link. It'll be on my Instagram. I have a list of all like the points, like the look, smile, say hello, introduce yourself. I'm going to put that on a PDF with a whole list of ways to invite people over. And
Awesome.
I don't know if I'm assuming you'll put that link on your
We
show
will.
notes
We'll put it
too.
in the show
So
notes.
I'll have that for you, and also at the top of my Instagram too. It will be on there also. But yeah, I am passionate about friends right now. I just think it's so important for our teenagers. Our teenagers can do all these things too, and our young
Yeah.
adults and ourselves. Like it's just without these friendships, I think we really are missing out on
Yeah.
a lot of special things.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
thanks,
Thanks for
Heather.
being here.
I
Yeah.
love chatting with you
I
always.
I always love to visit with you too. Sorry for my hoarse voice today, but thanks everybody. Thank you for being here. Go out and make some friends and help your kids learn how to make friends. I know it sounds so elementary, but it is like these points would be a really easy conversation to have for family home evening or just driving in the car, bringing up these 8 different points and sharing them with your teenagers and your spouse or whoever. I think such great points. So thanks, Daleen.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you again next week.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.